The first one is the first time diving in Monterey has really been spectacular, and the first time I ever saw a sea otter in the water. I took some students. I used to be a high school teacher, and I took my students down to go diving off the breakwater, and we saw sea otters foraging down there and diving birds going into the water, and it really blew their mind. And I think it was, it's one of those things you can do to help generate interest in the environment, in the ocean environment. But then since now, now I study blue whales and humpback whales and foraging in Monterey Bay and elsewhere in the world. And the first time that that we started tagging blue whales in Monterey Bay was the summer of 2016, me personally. And in July that year, there were a lot of blue whales up off the north shelf of the canyon. And we went out one day, and that was the year of the fires, the really big fires off Big Sur. And so there was smoke that was drifting over Monterey Bay, and what it did is it made all the particulates in the air really condensed, and so it had a lot of fog out on the water. So we were out there trying to work with blue whales on this really foggy but really calm day, so that in order to find these whales, we would turn off the engines and you would listen for the blows. And these animals, you could hear them, and you'd be like, okay, we're driving that way. And we tried to get, to put a tag on an animal, you have to get pretty close. And so we'd listen for the blow and drive that direction, and then it'd be 15 seconds later, and you'd stop again, and you'd listen for the next one. And we just kept doing that, and finally you see it come up in front of you, and we put up there, and we put a tag on this animal, and it was turned out to be a pretty cool data set of this animal foraging in really dense, patchy prey conditions. So that was a pretty cool experience. And then the other story I'd like to share is that this summer we're down in Southern California to try to work with blue whales off the Channel Islands, but the wind out there was really rough. And so at some point, after a few days of working down there, we called it. We said, we're not going to work in Southern California. Let's go up to Monterey Bay, where we know the weather's better right now. We've heard some reports of blue whales, but we're not quite sure what's going on up there. So we went up to Monterey Bay, moved all of our operations up there. It was like 15 people, 15 scientists, all moved up here. And we went out the first time we went out was just with small boats on a Sunday, and we went out to try to see what we could find. And we found a few blue whales out along kind of the mid-canyon and North Canyon edge. And we put a couple tags, we found a couple animals in pairs, and so we put a couple tags out, but we didn't see a lot of animals, but we put a couple tags out, we were trying to get drone images of these animals so we could measure their sizes in relation to how they forage. So we got images. We didn't get images that day, but we put the tags on, and so the next day we go out to recover the tags. And we're also looking for more animals so we could do the work and actually get the drone images. And we found the tag, and what was great is that by that time, when we found the tag had just come off like an hour before we were out there, and so we were looking for the tag, and the tag basically led us to this aggregation of probably 25 blue whales that were out there. And so, because the animal was foraging in the same place like all night long basically, and we found this great aggregation of animals, and so now we knew where we were, and we're trying to radio in now. We were at a separate boat, we're radioing to our other boats out there who are tagging a smaller group, and we're like, look, you guys got to get out of here. This is the place to be. This is where there's blue whales popping up left and right. Like you can, if you want to get drone flights of these animals so you could get, get pictures of the tag on the animal, we can do that. Like it's here. But they're out there working with other animals, and they're trying to do their thing. And so we put one tag on, and we're waiting for to bring the big boats over to do the flight so we can get a size estimates of these animals. And we're just following this animal and trying to keep track of it. And while we're doing that, we got to really know these animals' patterns. Like you're just out there for long enough that you start to see that. We're out there for probably 2 hours before these other folks come back, and we get a sense of like, okay, so when they surface, they're doing these U-shaped patterns and going back to the same spot. But when they are surfacing, they often come up 12 minutes later at this distance away in this direction, and so we're following that and following that and following that. So by the time that they get out there with the photogrammetry equipment, so we can measure the size of these animals, we're like, okay, guys, here's what you got to do. In 9 minutes exactly after this animal goes down, you got to go 100 meters this direction, and then in 9 minutes you got to launch that drone, and then the whale will come up right next to you. And we're doing our best, and with animals you can't ever really predict that, but sure enough, these animals came up right underneath the drone that they had in the air, and we got these beautiful images of the tag on the animal. And because these animals were in pairs, we had images of two animals, two really nice, clear measurements of these animals. And so we were like, well, now we have a measurement of this animal, but it doesn't have a tag on it, so we want to make sure we can maximize our data use. So then we had to do this thing one more time. We had to predict again where these animals are going to come up so we could tag the other animal in this pair of blue whales, so that we could have data on both of the animals. And it worked out really well, and it was just a really exciting day to get the data that you're looking for and really try to understand these animals really well.